Oh, Ironclad's only Ascension 7 because I lost. Ironclad died. Forgot about that. Hey, mate. DLS, thanks for the 5 months. Thanks, also. I heard of Heretics or I think so. I think I've heard of it. I couldn't tell you what it is though, but I'm pretty sure I've heard the name. We take Hemo over Dark Embrace. I'm not that high on Dark Embrace. Hey, BBK. I might take a nap halfway through today's stream. I did not sleep well last night. We'll see how it goes. Good morning, Captain Trist. Thanks for the 31 months, BBK. Wait, I could have just played the strike and I would have died. It's okay. We'll just kill it next turn. That's fine. Take fire potion here for slime boss. I think I like that. Hey Emma, how are you?
Hello, Jorbs. How's it going?
I'm not a morning person, but it's going as well as a morning can go, I think. Are you in the UK right now?
I am indeed.
Or
And it's
holidays?
4 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back in England for good, for the foreseeable. So.
Oh. For the foreseeable.
Well, yeah, because I was in the States for 2 months, but that was on a ESTA visa, which is only up to 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a long-term visa.
Gotcha. Did you enjoy your trip?
Yeah, it was good. The weather was much better compared to England. It's very wet and very cold here.
Believable. That is what they tell me about England. Whereabouts? You in, like, Minnesota or... Weren't you somewhere very wet and cold in the US? If you are speaking, I cannot hear you. Small cute frog. Hey, Mr. Bucket.
I am not sure what's happening.
You're back. I hear you again.
Yeah, hooray! Don't know what happened there, so sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in Virginia for a couple of months to see my partner.
Yeah.
And the weather in Virginia is quite nice.
Virginia, I have visited in summer, which was a bit much for me, but...
Yeah, the summers are hot,
yeah.
But when it's autumn and winter, it's, you know, you can see the sun and the sky, which is nice.
Yes,
it's very cloudy in England, so it does affect you. Like seasonal, you know, depression is a thing.
Yeah.
and it gets quite bad in the UK, just because you have the sunrise, which is late, and then the sunset is at like 3:30 during December. So it's like, cool. Guess I'm just not gonna get any vitamin D today.
I think Seattle has similar problems through winter. I try to take a trip. I'm going to LA next week actually, which will be nice.
Oh, nice.
Because yeah, you just don't really see the sun very much for a while.
But when it turns to January or February, it's like, hooray, the sunlight. I can go outside and do things.
Were you born and raised and have lived in England all your life?
Yes. I am from a county called Nottingham. I was born in a town not too far from where Robin Hood and his merry men did all his shenanigans. If you're familiar with Robin Hood.
I am familiar. Is that stuff historically backed?
Yes, at least in Nottingham, yes. It's generally regarded as this person existed. Probably not to the stories of what, you hear commonly, but he did exist, and he did have a band of merry men.
Oh, that's some nice positive masculinity. Nice to see men getting along.
Which is also my favorite Disney movie. The Disney movie's very good.
So, would you like to introduce yourself for my audience?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Considering I'm a little late. So yeah, I'm Emma. I am the content manager for TCG Player, who's it's the marketplace for like trading cards and whatnot. And I tend to write about Magic the Gathering quite a bit as well. So that's kind of my day-to-day job, looking at rectangular cards and writing about them, which is pretty fun. It's rare to be in a job that was once your hobby, but you still can treat it like a hobby, if that makes sense. Drawing that line can be quite challenging.
Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I imagine you've had similar experiences.
You've done some casting as well, like video casting for Magic tournaments recently,
Yeah, I
right?
did. Yes, so I did some commentary in October, which was my first time, and it was pretty fun. So I'm looking to jump into that because as someone who predominantly does writing and writes about tabletop games, it's just nice to do something different and see if I'm any good at video and audio content. So I'm excited to see where that goes, because if you don't know until you try, right?
Well, how's it gone so far?
Good. I'm going to be doing more commentating next month, and then just take it from there. I don't have a high bar in where I want to go. I'm just going to see where it goes. Obviously, the time is paid, which is also nice.
Sure.
I can do a little bit of hustling because thanks capitalism. But
an event like that, are you... It's always kind of seemed daunting to me. So I was friends with Cedric back in the day, and he was traveling weekends to a Star City Games tournament. It felt like most weeks of the year sometimes. I don't know if it actually was, but it felt like he was gone pretty often. And then he would get back and be exhausted. We used to do a podcast together, and there was one episode where we were on camera. There was one episode where he joined the call from his bed with the lights out, completely under the covers, lying on his side with his webcam pointing at him, and that was just, we just got slug Cedric for that day, because that was how much energy I'd left. So I've always had a healthy appreciation, I would say, for how much work goes into running that sort of event. Also, just as a live streamer, I know how much work it is for me to do a 6-hour stream just where I'm playing a game and talking, and I'm not thinking about a lot of the other stuff that's going on as well.
Yeah, it's a thing we don't really talk about when we produce content. It's the unseen hours, it's the prep time, it's setting everything up, it's, you know, making sure you've researched what you're going to talk about or what you're doing. A lot of people don't see that, and there's just a lot of unforeseen hours that honestly makes it tiring, just because you're seeing the end result as the audience, but for us it's like, yeah, we've done like 40 hours of work before, you know, this before recording.
Yeah, one of the reasons that all of the people you see doing things like commentating on an esports event are huge fans of the game that is being played is that, like, they're doing a tremendous amount of unpaid work to learn the game that is being talked about. Like, you wouldn't get someone who wasn't already playing the game to cast the game very often at all, except in maybe the absolute upper echelons of the esports industry, because somebody being willing to do the unpaid work to learn all of the champions and abilities and everything is just a really big deal.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and obviously, you know, from Cedric, just from, you know, seeing how exhausted Cedric was from doing those SCGs. Granted, SCGs aren't really a thing anymore. They just tend to do monthly conventions now because competitive Magic has changed in a huge way because of the pandemic. But they're still exhausting. Like, even though there's less events, those events are still tiring because you're still putting the same amount of work in. It's just there's just less of it.
How do you feel like the future of competitive Magic is fairly known right now? I feel like, okay, last time I paid much attention was maybe 2 years ago, and it felt like it was really up in the air. That's when the Pro Tour was getting cancelled and stuff like that.
So that, I believe that would have been during like the pandemic, when everything went to Magic Arena, which is the digital client for Magic. So a lot of high-level competitive events transferred to Magic Arena because they still wanted these events to fire. Otherwise, they would just lose a lot of money.
Sure.
Competitive Magic's in a weird flux right now. There is like a Pro Tour scene. There are events you can attend to play in these Pro Tours. It's just really difficult because competitive Magic does not make money, and Hasbro, who own Wizards of the Coast, are interested in just making money. So they're gonna lean towards the stuff that makes the most profit, right? That's just the way it is. So while there is a competitive Magic system and it's fine for the most part, it's not growing. So I'd be very surprised if anything changes growth-wise in the next few years, just because it doesn't. People don't buy packs for competitive Magic. They do it to play Commander.
Sure.
Which is the casual format that everybody plays and makes the most money.
I don't want this to be about criticizing Hasbro. However,
that's fair.
I will phrase this in a positive way, actually. Thinking about like the history of content creators, especially related to gaming, I feel like Wizards did an incredible job of creating the Pro Tour and presenting the Pro Tour lifestyle, and kind of having, for me as an American audience member, I feel like they were the first creators really attached to a game in the way that I've seen like athletes attached to a sport, and then you started having like poker players attached to poker and X Games athletes attached to skateboarding, and then Wizards kind of went in on that with the Pro Tour lifestyle. And I remember that happening in the early aughts, maybe late 90s. And it was compelling. I stayed up to watch Pro Tours and stuff like that. But I do feel like nowadays, the people who are attached to Magic, they're live on stream, like, every day.
Yeah.
People can just go watch them, and Wizard doesn't need to pay them to do that. And so
No.
the landscape's really changed, and the incentives have probably realigned with that change.
Yeah, Magic Arena and just the growth of Twitch has changed content creation and Magic in a big way. It's made it more accessible, which is good because people can earn money from doing the thing they actually want to do, which is very cool. I think that's a good life goal to have in general.
Nice if you can pull it off.
Yeah, it's not easy for sure, but if you can pull it off, it's great. Because if we're going to if we have to work for the rest of our lives, you may as well make it something you actually want to do. I understand that is a luxury, but at the same time, it's just a cool thing to do if you can.
Yeah, it's aspirational. That's one of the things that I've been talking a little bit about with people this week is like, a lot of us have always been passionate about gaming, but then at some point we were able to turn that into more than just a hobby.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see the different ways that people have managed to do that. And there are pluses and minuses, I would say.
I agree. I had an interesting conversation with my partner not too long ago about this, because he also does Magic content, but also plays. And at one point, Magic was just a simple hobby for me. I would just go and play, F&Ms and just hang out and just treat it as this card game that I just played for hours with a couple of friends. But the second you attach money to something, you have to reevaluate your relationship with it because it can become a job. So it is sometimes healthy just to find another hobby to replace, the hobby that is now your job. If that makes sense.
Do you feel like you've done that? Do you have a new hobby?
Yeah, I have a couple of hobbies. So I like to bake. I'm a big fan of baking and making tasty food. I also enjoy Warhammer.
Okay.
So I like to paint Warhammer miniatures in my quiet time. I find that quite relaxing. And then I also enjoy going on hikes. So I like taking long walks because where I live in Lancashire, it's quite scenic and there's a lot of countryside. So you can just go for like long walks in the hills, which is also quite nice.
I had a summer of my life where my hobby was painting Warhammer. Had a very strange relationship with Warhammer over the course of my life because I wanted to play it a lot when I was a kid. And then as I got older, I realized that I just didn't enjoy playing at all. But I really enjoyed painting. Whereas as a kid, I never had the patience to actually paint the models, which was maybe one of the reasons that I kind of bounced off it eventually. And then I came back to it and started painting. And I haven't played a game of Warhammer since I started actually enjoying painting. But
Same.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with that. So I think Warhammer is the kind of hobby where you can there's so many different ways to appreciate it, right? Like you have the Black Library, which is all the literature and the books they produce. You could choose to not play Warhammer or paint the models, but you can just read the books because the books themselves are very good. For me, it's just nice to have this blank canvas and I could just like focus on something for 3 to 4 hours and paint, and I just find it quite therapeutic.
Do you like doing makeup?
Times I'm not someone that wears like a tremendous amount of makeup. Like I'll wear some, but I guess I'm just not someone that's just spent a lot of time on it because I wasn't really brought up to. So I will just wear, a little bit of foundation and do some mascara, and that's fine for me. I don't spend hours in the morning getting ready or whatever. But if people want to do that, that's great. It's just not something I've considered doing. Maybe I should.
I've heard it compared to painting models a lot because it's like a three-dimensional space, and you're caring about how light can hit different angles and stuff like that. And I have male friends who were not brought up doing makeup at all, who got into painting models and then got into like YouTube tutorials of makeup painting to learn how to paint their models better, and then got into makeup. So it's been kind of fun to see that sort of, whatever you'd call it.
I can definitely see the comparisons. Because so in my childhood, I grew up with 2 older brothers, and when you grow up, you tend to take your biggest influence from your siblings. So we used to play a lot of Warhammer and a lot of video games and tabletop games, and that's just carried into my adult life. So if I did makeup as a kid, sure, I'd probably be doing a lot more of it, but doing makeup for me was painting Warhammer models in this instance.
What is the concept of underpainting, May? May says the concept of underpainting has recently infiltrated makeup. Wait, is there conversation back and forth? Are there people who like doing makeup who are looking for how people paint miniatures? Because I never considered that it could go that way too.
Yeah, I imagine there's an interesting like crossover of content. Like, could you do something makeup-wise that's Warhammer related or vice versa?
I guess cosplayers often do, don't they? They,
Yeah, true.
Doing some sort of fantasy makeup type of thing. How people paint classics have influenced both. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I find that interesting. You said Warhammer. What was the other hobby you said? There was another one.
So I do baking.
Oh, baking, yeah.
Yep, and I do hiking. I also play video games, which is kind of a in and out thing for me. I don't know if I have something like ADHD that I haven't been diagnosed, but it just feels like something very ADHD-like, where I will just if I do play a video game, I will play it for like 5 days straight, finish it, and then I'll be done. And then not play video games for a while, and then something else will come along and I would do the same thing. Recently I played Dome Keeper, which is a really fun game. It's kind of a roguelike with resource management.
Yeah, I have a friend who plays a lot of Dome Keeper. I have 2 friends who play a lot of Dome Keeper. May in chat is one of the best Dome Keeper players in the world. She would never let me actually say that about her. Like, if she were here, she would start yelling at me right now. I mean, she's in chat, but you know.
Yeah,
a fun game.
I've really enjoyed it. I love the aesthetic, that sort of pixelated, almost retro-like aesthetic's quite nice. Loop Hero is another one that I really enjoyed, which I got the inspiration from your stream, Jorbs, ages ago. That one's a pretty fun one.
I am stunned by Loop Hero because most games... Like, I played Loop Hero when it released, and I enjoyed it a lot, and then, you know, moved on. And then I came back to it, like, I don't know, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years later or something, and played it some more. I still enjoyed it, which is often the case. Often I still enjoy a game, even after I've stopped playing it for stream. But what blew my mind was that, like, those streams got some of the best viewership of any streams that I've done in the past year.
Oh,
when
really?
I had, like, a week of doing Loop Hero this year. Like, people showed up to watch that. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's the music. It's, like, so entrancing. And then you just go around in a circle. I don't know.
Yeah, games like that. I occasionally play Slay the Spire, but I tend to play Slay the Spire. I like the daily challenges, just because it's short and it's a good way to make sure I have a lunch break, because I work from home. For those who don't know, so it's just like, cool, I'm done with work, and then we'll do like a daily challenge on Slay the Spire, and it's like, cool, I'm done, I've had my food, and I'll just get back to work.
Yeah, I don't usually play the daily challenges, but I feel like that's more a fault of my own than a fault of the daily challenges.
Sure.
I have friends who have been playing the daily challenge almost every day for like 3 years and get really into it. And every time they talk about it, I wish that I could find the same joy. But I think for me, I just want the game to be the same every time I play it, and so the modifiers for me are
For sure.
like undesirable chaos instead of a fun change or whatever. How was hiking in England? I imagine it would be cool.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You need to be prepared for the weather because the weather can turn badly at any point. But yeah, it's nice. Where I live in the northwest, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of countryside. So as someone who's from the countryside, it is just really nice just to be, get to touch grass, to put it in a more simple way. It's also just nice to reset as well, considering, it's really easy just to be on near a screen all the time.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Working from home and just, the compulsiveness just to be on phones or whatever, which we all kind of do just out of habit. It's just nice to take half a day off on a weekend and just, I'm just going to go for a long walk and just throw on a podcast or two and then just go wherever.
Alright, so this week I am raising money, we are raising money for Free to Love, which is a charity which funds art programs for kids and teaches love and self-acceptance, and also love and acceptance of others. And I've been trying to focus the last week of my year on positives from online communities and gaming and life, but mostly with an angle toward online communities and gaming. And so the thing I was thinking about talking to you about was your long-distance relationship, because
Yes.
you have met someone through gaming, and now you're looking at an international move, potentially.
Yes. So I've been dating my partner now for, times that circle. I want to say it's roughly 2 years. But I've known them for about three and a half. So my partner's in the Magic the Gathering circle. And we just got talking through Twitter because apparently that's just the dating site these days. So we were in the same circle for Magic. We kind of knew of each other at this point, but not actually know each other talking wise. But we're both really big Simpsons fans. So often we would just talk Simpsons on our own separate tweets and whatever, and then that became a thing. And we started talking about Simpsons, and then I think it was, when the first time my partner messaged me, it was a sliding into DMs thing, just talking about Simpsons, and then it just snowballed from there. It's just one of those things, and it's long distance relationships are hard. They're weird. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who has any sanity, but I'm thankful it happened. It's just very, very challenging.
Yes, I did 3 years of long distance in my life and don't intend to anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of respect for how hard that can be.
It's difficult, and when people say it's easy, I wonder what they mean by that, because I don't know in a world where it's easy, unless you're being tremendously casual about it, which you might be. I'm not going to tell people how to have their relationships, but when you're close to 4,000 miles apart and on a different time zone at this point, it is challenging.
Ross is your partner's name, is that right?
Ross, yes, sorry. Yeah,
okay.
Ross is my partner.
I knew that. I'm proud of me for yes. Alright, I'm so bad with names, but I got that one.
That's same.
Does he work in Magic as well? Does he have a Magic 9 to 5, I guess is
He doesn't have a Magic 9 to 5.
Do you have a 9 to 5?
I mean, I have a 9 to 5. It's working for TCG player. So
Sure,
TCG player is a full-time job for me. But with Ross, he does a lot of he does commentary as well, and he does I guess he's more of a contractor, I guess is the way to put it, where he'll do commentary for places, he'll do the occasional like thing, but it's not full-time. It gives him a lot of freedom to do what he wants, and coupled with the fact that where he lives in Virginia is also quite affordable, so he doesn't need to work as much as well. So it means he gets to do more stuff he wants to do.
Sure.
So, which is great, you know. So yeah, he does magic stuff as well. I am more full-time magic, just because of the nature of my job and my employment. So yeah, it does work out. We surprisingly don't talk a lot about magic, which is kind of nice.
Yeah,
and it's not intentional.
Simpsons are.
Yeah.
I watched a really good video essay about The Simpsons, titled "Are the Simpsons Good Again?" Which, as someone who watched The Simpsons growing up as a kid and then stopped watching largely just because I grew to an age where I was watching other stuff, I never really stopped enjoying The Simpsons. I don't even... Why did I stop watching The Simpsons? Why do we stop watching The Simpsons as we get older, Emma?
There was a point where it just went really bad, which is where I dropped off.
Maybe it was because it got bad.
Yeah, I stopped watching, so I would watch it regularly when it was on TV when I was a child, growing up. I think it got to around season 13, season 14, where it started to get really bad. And then it's just like, I think there was other TV shows coming out, other cartoons and animated shows coming out at the time that just kind of took over and were more relevant, I guess.
Yes. Well, the title of this video essay was "Are the Simpsons Good Again?" And the person basically watched every season of The Simpsons and rated them based on how often they made him laugh or something like that. It was a really fun video essay and made me appreciate how incredible that show is.
Yeah.
This has been around for a long time.
I really enjoy the first 10 seasons of The Simpsons, which is the time frame that me and Ross tend to like do quotes and references, because it's basically our second language, which is it's a cute thing to have in a relationship. You all have your own language, and Simpsons is ours.
Yes, I have a language for talking to my cats in. That's as close as I get these days. Squirrels did long distance for 2 years, and they are expecting their first child in July. That's exciting.
Congrats.
Yeah, one of the nice things about aging a little bit as a content creator and having a community of people who have been sometimes watching for years at this point, and also who, like, my audience is aging with me. I do not appeal as much to the young folk as I did when I started, although I don't know if I ever did. I certainly wasn't ever hip with the kids. One of the really cool things is, like, you get to see people going through these major life events and having incredible, like, celebrating defending their PhD or getting married, or hey, I just got proposed to, or it's so wonderful. So it's easy to be overwhelmed by negative things in the online space, but it's not hard at all to find positive ones. I am playing. You have my stream up?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so I've been playing Spire alongside chatting with people, which is not too bad because I'm playing on difficulty 0, basically.
Yeah.
Although I've been surprised by how much difficulty Zero manages to hold up. And this run is kind of breaking my brain. So sometimes I am stopping talking and it's because I have no idea what I'm meant to be doing. I apologize for that.
Fine. That's okay. Thinking is hard.
Mm-hmm. What's up with that?
I know, right?
I think I would appreciate a new brain. I feel like my brain worked a bit better, like, I don't know, maybe pre-pandemic. Maybe it was something about being inside for so long, or maybe it's just getting older.
I put mine down to age and catching COVID.
Do you feel like you have long COVID? Is that a thing?
I don't think I have long COVID. I mean, it's just hard to tell, right?
Sure.
It's really hard to just, you know, say I have this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be lying that I haven't felt the same since catching COVID.
That's rough.
If that makes sense. It's pretty brutal. And I hope everyone is staying safe where they can.
So, what was cool about your trip to the US? And we talked about how you two met on Twitter. Okay, actually, I wanna hear about the message. Who made the move, Emma?
Oh, Ross made the move.
Okay.
Ross definitely made the move. I believe he was a little tipsy at this point as well, because he said because years later he said he was quite nervous. So it was a liquid courage message, from what I can gather. And I just thought he was being polite because I kind of knew him around the magic scene anyway, so I knew he wasn't like a weirdo or just you know the way it is in social media and online and stuff.
Yes. I have never been a woman on social media, but
right.
I certainly have friends who are. Yeah.
It wasn't like an ill intent, bad-natured like message. So it was just like, I think it was something along the lines of, it's really like refreshing to talk to someone, or just have someone in the space that knows all these Simpsons references. It's nice to feel valid. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. Like Simpsons great. Like why wouldn't you, sort of thing. And then it just kind of went on from there, really. We just slowly started talking. You talk like once a week, and then it just progresses to like every other day, and then it's like daily, and then kind of just went from there. And then I had an opportunity, because I was going to the States last year with family, and we went to Charlotte, which is not too far. North Carolina is not too far from Virginia. So after spending time with family, I went out to Roanoke to meet Ross in person, and then the rest is history. So it was a combination of opportunities that led to the fact that I could meet Ross, because it's really hard to work. Like, you need to make these opportunities and take them when you can. We just
like looking back at it now, is there anything that you would identify as like particularly important, or anything that you would have changed, maybe? Any expectation that you had going in that, looking back, you're like, that's not really quite how it worked out?
I kind of wish we had a better way to meet, because I met Ross in Virginia. I think it was in Virginia or in somewhere, but it was also with his friends, and I kind of wish I kind of put my foot down and said, it'd be really cool just to meet one-to-one, sort of thing. So I was also meeting Ross's friends as well as Ross, at the same time, and it just felt a little overwhelming for someone
Sure.
that's a bit of an introvert. Considering I'm making this big, bold move by visiting anyway, adding that on top was less than ideal, but I worked through it fine. So it wasn't a disaster.
Yes, I'm an introvert myself. I have surprised myself with how much better I've managed to be as I've aged, I think. Working through situations like that. Like, especially with streaming, like meeting people at conventions and stuff like that, I can definitely say that I've gotten to a point where I can like turn on work mode socializing and glide through okay and everything. But then the difference is, I think for a lot of people, they'll do that for like a day and then they'll be like, oh, that was great. It was so great to talk to all of these people. Yay, it's go have dinner or whatever. And whereas I will finish my day at the convention or whatever and go like sit on my bed in like a fugue state for 2 hours. My girlfriend and I call it potato mode. Because she's always really excited to see me after I'm done with work, and I'm like, I'm gonna need to be in potato mode for like an hour or so before I'm there with you. Sorry.
You just need to decompress and recharge the battery. I'm very similar.
Yeah.
Especially when I've gone to like Magic conventions. While it's really cool to meet people and hang out and stuff, I will take like 2 hours away from the convention just to lay down and stare at a dark ceiling and just unwind. And I feel so much better for it.
Yeah, brains are so weird.
Brains are weird, and it's just nice to be in a desensitized space. I like having contrast.
Contrast
Contrast in that if I'm in a loud, bustly, bright space for however long, I also take comfort in the fact that I can sit in a very quiet, dark, not lonely, but solitary place where I can just recharge and not say a word.
I have a lot of... My house is very brightly decorated. Like, I have a Barbie doll blue wall and a pink couch that I can look at as I look to my left while I'm streaming and stuff like that. And then I have very loud abstract art in my stairwell and stuff like this. For me, my contrast is like, after work I have been sitting in a chair in an environment which is like pretty fun and interesting to a lot of people who are playing a game, and that's cool and everything, but it's also somewhat two-dimensional.
Yes.
And sometimes I will stand up from my chair and like miss the third dimension of life. And so I've tried to bring contrast into my life in sort of the other direction, where you're wanting to go from a convention which is loud and three-dimensional to somewhere quiet. I'm wanting to go from streaming, which is streaming, go from that to something a little bit more loud.
I do contrast in that way sometimes. So if I'm working during the day and I either finish up early or I have like a lighter afternoon, I will just take 2 hours, like a 2-hour block, and just go for a long walk somewhere if the weather's nice. Just as another way to contrast myself from being, hey, I've been stuck in my apartment working at a desk, you know, sitting or whatever. I kind of want to just go for a long walk and grab a pint somewhere, and then come back and finish my day.
Sure.
Just having that reset is really, really, it's really refreshing, but it's also really liberating.
Did you find that hard in COVID times when stuff was shut?
Yes, it was very difficult. I think a lot of people found that difficult.
A huge part of my day was like taking a walk with a destination, like going to a bar or going to get dinner or breakfast or whatever. And then the destination's all shut, and I was like, what do I do?
Fortunately, during lockdowns in the UK, granted they were lockdowns, but they were relatively soft in some places. So they were like, you can go outside to go for a run or go for a walk or something, but it can't be too long or, you know, in bustly places. So I would take a jog around the block for like 20 minutes because it's something. Granted, it didn't mean I couldn't go anywhere. It was just something to do because being stuck inside for so long, it's just basically cabin fever at this point.
We never shut down to quite the level of... Like, all of our stores were shut, but in terms of you going places, it was like, well, the places are shut, so you won't have much to do there, but...
Yeah, the only places that were open in the UK were just convenience stores and supermarkets on occasion. But it was just wild when it was happening because I lived in a different part of England at this point, and I lived near like a busy road where you could just hear cars whizzing past all the time. But the second lockdown happened, it was just dead silent, and it was just really weird. It was kind of nice because it was quiet, but it was also weird because you knew why it was quiet.
Right.
You just never really experienced it before until it happened.
Yes, I used to live in a suburb of Seattle, which had a lot of traffic of people going to work in the morning and then coming home at night. And that was remarkable to me that all of that traffic just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, this is what we could have had, kind of thing. It's just like, wow, cars are just bad.
Yeah, a bit of that. I also felt lonely, though. Would have been nice if it was replaced by, like, people being out and about in communal space. But that's not what we got.
Yeah, America doesn't really have walkable cities, right?
No, we have walkable colleges sometimes.
Okay. That is one thing I am thankful for in England. Everything is very walkable. Because I don't drive, because I know I can walk and use public transport. And just, you know, not having to be imprisoned in a car, which is kind of nice.
I also do not drive. I wouldn't recommend not driving in the US.
For sure. I know when I eventually move to the US, I'm certain I'll know how to get like a driving license.
But I definitely have a large appreciation for the value of not having to drive.
Yeah. And it's just weird having those conversations. Like, I have it with my partner sometimes, where I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to walk to, like, the supermarket, and it's, like, a 25-minute walk. And, like, to me, that's nothing. That's just normal for me. But for my partner, it's like, wow, that's, like, 25 minutes is so long. And it's like, well, yeah, I can just actually walk there.
It's comfortable. It's a good idea to walk. What did my friend tell me? 30 minutes a day or something. It's like a minimum of exercise. My friend is a exercise person. What do you call it? A fitness trainer? Something like that. And at some point told me that 30 minutes walk a day was really important to me. Probably when I was complaining about how I sat inside and never went outside and felt terrible all the time. She was like, well... Would you like sympathy or an observation? I don't know if I'm getting feeds here. Did your microphone break again?
Yeah. It's all good now, though.
Okay. What?
Excuse me.
Okay. there is no rush. I have Spire enemies to defeat and or die to, so yeah. Have you considered exercise and fresh air? Gosh, yeah.
I love those things.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you can play recreational sports and fresh air. Then you're also getting exercise.
What's your sport of choice?
So I really like badminton. And I also like tennis. Tennis is a good one.
Tennis might be my favorite spectator sport, or maybe ice hockey, which I've never
Ice
actually
hockey's
played.
great.
Never played ice hockey.
Ice hockey, watching the NHL is my favorite sport to watch. It's so good.
Huh. I'm interested that you agree. There's something about the exact pacing of it, something, which I think it shares with tennis. Like, the right amount of stuff happens per minute. Which doesn't mean that tons of stuff happens. It's just like the right amount of stuff.
I just like the momentum. You can have really like fast-paced tennis or hockey, or it can be really slow, but it's still really interesting. I also find it gets quite passionate as well, which is something you get in tennis and hockey. You're dealing with a lot of tension. But also, I also enjoy watching cricket, which is something you know about, Jorbs.
Uh-huh. That's what we first talked about, right?
Yeah, we talked about the Ashes. And I was surprised you're awake, so such a weird time to watch it.
You have to be, as an American. They don't schedule cricket for the American viewing audience, which is very upsetting. I am very surprised that cricket doesn't do better in the US than it does, because it is just Ascension 20 baseball. And people say they like baseball. And also the people who like baseball a lot try to make it more complex and nuanced than it is. Which, like, credit to them. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. But, like, cricket already exists.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You could just watch cricket. And, I don't know. Somehow this is just not widely recognized.
Sounds like you need to move to England, Jorbs.
No, I'll just change America instead. I can fix it.
National Cricket League. Let's go.
I think they're doing something like that pretty soon.
I wouldn't be surprised.
There's like a T20 tournament system starting up, which I saw there was a Seattle team for, so I was excited to watch them. And then I found out that actually all of the games are being played at like 2 different stadiums in Texas or something like that. So it's not...
Huh.
Yeah. Not quite what I was expecting. But hopefully, if it gets good viewership and interest, it will expand.
Yes, T20 cricket is really fun to watch. And I think that is the ticket to make cricket interesting internationally. Because it's short enough, but enough happens to make it interesting.
Yeah, it is wonderful to watch cricket for 5 days if you like watching cricket, but it's not so great if you don't like watching cricket.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when a 5-day cricket match can result in a tie. As well.
One of the glorious things about the beautiful sport.
I grew up watching Test cricket, so I'm used to the long form cricket. But I can understand why people don't like it.
Yeah. The way that club cricket works is actually pretty contentious right now, because for a long time, cricket was something that was funded by national governments. for international play. So a large amount of the funding was coming from taxpayers for a country to have a cricket team. And the cricket team would make money off of ticket sales and stuff, but like the advertising and marketing and everything element of it wasn't really taking over that much. And recently, in the last maybe 10 years, cricket has become more of a commercial product, and especially in India, there are tournaments where players are being paid tons and tons and tons of money to fly to India for a few months and play for a team, and tickets are selling out, and sponsorships are pretty significant. I think they have a bit of the sports betting sponsorship stuff going on that you're seeing in quite a few sports recently.
Yeah.
Which creates kind of a rift in the player base, where some people are not playing for their national team even though they are good enough to be on it, because they're going to prioritize going to India for a few months to play for a club team there and make a ton of money. I don't feel like cricket has quite solved that in the way that soccer... I don't know if soccer successfully solved it, but soccer like has breaks for international play, where like the club teams will stop playing for a bit and all the international players will go play their international tournament or friendlies or whatever. And cricket doesn't quite have that as much, I don't think. It's a puzzle at the moment. I was reading about David Warner saying that he wouldn't play like Australian cricket anymore and was going to go on the T20 circuit. I was reading that this morning before I started stream, and I was thinking about like, what does that even mean?
Well, I imagine now you have, but just because there's so many different formats of cricket, you will just have specialists in a particular type of format. So you'll have T20 specialists that will just do nothing but play T20 cricket. And I imagine there will be players that will play nothing but Test cricket because that's what they want to do. I imagine there'll be more T20 cricket players these days just because it's more lucrative financially.
Right.
And considering cricket doesn't always pay super well, when you've got, as you said, when you've got Indian teams wanting the best talent for the IPL, you know, you can go there for 3 months and make a year's salary. And
sometimes
change.
More than that, yeah.
Sometimes more if you're really good, and if you win the IPL, you know, it becomes a huge amount of money.
Do they get paid extra for performance as well? Maybe I should become a cricket player.
But you have to get paid for like winning something, right? You must get some sort of bonus or some sort of incentive.
I don't actually know how that works in professional sports. It does sound sensible. It sounds immensely reasonable. I don't actually know how it works though.
But I do like watching the IPL. IPL is great.
Yes, it is a good time.
It gets very serious very quickly.
They have good highlights as well.
Yes.
No complaints here. Burlakai says that Cricket and Spire have to have decent overlap in the skill sets, which I think is probably true. They're both very strategically rich games. I've run out of similarities now. Worth reading the story of Ricky Williams' NFL contract. Tell me the story of Ricky Williams' NFL contract. Twitch chat. Asking Twitch chat to tell you something is always a bit hit or miss, because there's a decent chance that they like left already. They just like wrote the comment and then disappeared. And then even if they are still here, like now I've just committed myself to waiting an indefinite amount of time for somebody to write up a response to my question. Do you think that Magic the Gathering will ever have a huge scene like that sort of thing?
What, competitively?
Magic sort of has a competitive scene. I mean, it does have a competitive scene, but
it had a really good tournament. And this was a pre-pandemic It was something called the World Magic Cup,
Okay.
which was basically where it was like the World Cup, what you have in soccer, but with teams of Magic players from their countries.
Sure.
And you would have to play a national, like a big event in your country to be on the team. If you earned like X amount of points and you did so well in a competitive Magic season, you would get to play for, you know, the USA for the World Magic Cup. And it was very similar to, you know, like the Soccer World Cup, where you would just play against different countries, and then there would be like a top 8, and then a quarterfinal, semi-final, and then a final, and then there will be a World Magic Cup winner, and it will be whatever country. And that was really fun. It was probably one of the best Magic events like ever, because it had this really fun community spirit.
Sure.
And you could get behind like your country. So you could cheer on England or whoever, and it was just really, really fun. And you got to see a lot of like the high-end pro players, like the super good players, because they were good enough to play in the World Magic Cup.
But then it was teams as well, so sometimes you'd see your really high school pro player paired with someone else who had qualified, so it wasn't necessarily the teammate they were used to. Yeah. It could be. It could be someone like you, in quotation marks.
Yeah. I could play against Jorbs in the World Magic Cup, you know. That could be a scenario that happened, you know, using this. But unfortunately they got rid of it, which is a huge shame, because it was pretty fun. It was competitive, but it was also light-hearted, but it also brought a good community spirit, which is something I think Pro Magic is struggling with right now.
Yeah.
But it was also just expensive, like a lot of things.
I laughed at it. Unfortunately, they got rid of it. I feel like so many times as players of games, the punchline to any story we have about something we really loved is when they got rid of it.
Yeah. But that was the closest I think Wizards ever got to Magic being of like that sporting structure, if that makes sense.
Sure.
That we're familiar with when it comes to like cricket, the Olympics, and football. Also, cricket's really fun to play. I used to play it as a kid.
What was your role on the team?
I was the batsman. I was the one that opened.
Ooh, opening batter.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
How old did you play up to?
I played, let me figure this out from so I was playing in high school, which is like your secondary school.
Yeah, that's fairly...
It was in my teens.
Yeah. I think I stopped playing when I was 12.
Yeah. But I also picked up badminton at this point as well, which was really fun. And I enjoyed that much more than cricket. It was also easier to find people to play with compared to cricket. I was an opener. There was also fine in the field as well.
I was a batting all-rounder.
I
bowled uninspiring medium pacers. I mean, I was 12 when I stopped, so not really, but you know. And for my entire life, though, I had grown up playing cricket in the hallway of my parents' house. I lost count of how many times me and my friend broke the light bulb, because it wasn't like an inset light bulb, it was a hanging light, and we were playing cricket in the hallway with a tennis ball. That light had been destroyed several times over. And I always bowled spin to my friend, because there was no room for a run-up, so you couldn't get momentum into your delivery. So I bowled off spin. And the last over that I ever bowled, like the coaches were always like, no, you have to bowl medium pace, you can't bowl off spin in the game, etc, etc, etc. The last over that I ever bowled, I got up there and bowled off spin, and took 4 wickets. It was a 4-wicket maiden. And then I moved to the
nice.
US.
Very good.
Yeah.
What could have been? Maiden is excellent.
What could have been? I think actually I might have bowled a wide. That might have been 4 wickets, 2 dots, and a wide.
Still pretty good.
Bowled off spin, took 4 wickets. It was a maiden. None of those words mean anything. Srab has just called himself maidenless.
To answer Tepek's question about the cost of cricket, as in for people to try and get into it, like the cost of getting into cricket is quite low. The hardest thing is just finding people to play with. Getting like a pair of bats and like a ball is cheap. It's really cheap. You can also get something called we call it rounders in the UK, which is a bit more like softball, which has a similar baseball bat,
right?
Yeah, and you have like a tennis ball. But cricket itself is pretty cheap. But if your kids really want to start playing for, say, like a school team and want to take it seriously, then it does get expensive because you have, you know, pads and helmets, and you need a good quality cricket bat. And those all add up. But in terms of just like going to the park and playing with your kids and playing cricket, it is cheap compared to something like hockey.
Yeah, it's a bit more like soccer, and like you need very, very minimal equipment to play cricket. I used to play with like a tennis ball and our hands with friends sometimes at lunchtime in school, where you just hit the ball with your hand instead of using a bat, and the rules are all the same, but you just don't need a bat anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, but then once you reach the point where somebody is bowling a leather ball at your head at 140 kilometers an hour, you have to start purchasing a helmet and padding and things like that, and that starts to add up.
Yes. But for a casual thing to do every other weekend with your children, it is... I can't imagine it being more than like $30-40.
I always used to con my parents into buying me an ice cream afterwards. So, you know, that adds another couple of dollars.
The Jorbs ice cream tax.
Yeah. That was one of my fondest memories of childhood with my dad, was that he coached my cricket team for one summer.
Nice.
Yeah. He was a very impartial coach, to the point, I would say, of even like ignoring me at times because I was his son and he didn't want to be playing favorites. But it was still really nice. It was fine. What games have really impressed you this year? You mentioned Loop Hero. Did you play Loop Hero before this year?
No, I played Loop Hero this year. That was really fun. Dome Keeper, as I mentioned earlier, was really, really fun. When it comes to playing video games, I don't play the stuff that's like recent. So I still need to play Baldur's Gate 3. But I'm one of these people that's happy to wait 6 months to a year, like wait for the patches to come out, and then
I think it's 10% off right now. Just saying.
I'll like take a week off work and I will just play it, because it's the kind of game that requires a lot of attention because there's just so much you can do. And
yeah, you might need 3 weeks off work for that one.
Sure, but
Baldur's Gate 3 is a lot.
It's a lot. It looks to be amazing. I'm a fan of the first two, but it's just, I don't want to give the game any discredit by just having work stuff and other commitments. I just solely want to focus on Baldur's Gate 3 when I can.
Sure.
So I think early next year I'm just going to take some time off for myself and just become a hermit and play Baldur's Gate 3, and it's going to be great. So yeah, I don't really play there's very few games that I play that are just released. I just tend to pick them up, you know, when I have time and, you know, whether there's a good sale or whatever. Dave the Diver was one recent one that I enjoyed.
What was that, sorry?
I don't know if you... Dave the Diver.
Yeah, I played a few
I
hours
enjoyed
of
that
it.
one.
It got overwhelming, all of the... Like, there was always another thing to incorporate. I got a
Yeah.
bit overwhelmed with it.
But
Aseth claims that
often...
I'm the best bowler in cricket history for my 4-wicket maiden, which, again, I don't think I was actually a maiden. I'm pretty sure I bowled it wide. Also, I was bowling to, like, 11-year-olds who had probably never seen the ball spin before. So...
Headed a hallway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this was
Impressive
at a
hallway
pitch.
cricket.
This was at a pitch. This was like
Okay.
a Saturday kids league game.
Sure.
My practice had all been in a hallway with the tennis ball on carpet though. So
Got it.
I probably have something weird about how my left hand is constructed, actually, because I grew up bowling a lot of spin. Nowadays in cricket, so cricket's fascinating because the ball bounces. So whereas in baseball, there are ways you can make the ball move through the air, which can change how a pitch curves or drops or floats or what have you. In cricket, you still have all of that. And the ball has a seam, kind of like in baseball, which can make it move different ways in the air. But you also have the ball contacting the ground, which means that the ball can bounce off the seam to deviate, or the ball can be spinning when it impacts with the ground to change direction, and what have you. And it's very hard at the speed that balls are being bowled to actually tell how the spin of the ball is going to change how it changes direction when it lands. And there are people in cricket now who, like, somebody worked out how to deliver a certain delivery in a way that was very deceptive 30 years ago by bending their finger the wrong way and then making it pop as they let go of the ball to create spin in a direction that looked impossible. And then kids grew up bowling that way to try to replicate it, and their hands are just, like, built differently from normal human hands. Because they started doing that at age 2 or something.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what people can do with a cricket ball.
Yeah.
Like spins and whatnot.
I've really enjoyed... This was probably during the Ashes or something. The commentators were talking about how the world of cricket has shrunk with so much video being available of everyone bowling and stuff like that. If someone works out a bowling technique, everyone will study it and work out how to do it. And you said, especially with pace bowlers who are just trying to bowl the ball fast, they all understand, like, how everybody's holding the ball and making it do certain things and stuff, and they're getting really good at understanding that. But there are some deliveries that there's just, like, only 1 or 2 people in the world who can do that because your hand has to be malformed.
Yeah.
Maybe malformed is the wrong word. Better formed instead.
It's not exactly... common to do that, but it's something that people do. And then you have the whole situation of tampering with the ball, which is a very serious thing you can do in cricket and get in trouble for.
That's a thing in baseball too. Americans are familiar with ball tampering. Yeah. We know all about that here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, pitchers get random searches after they pitch in baseball games now.
Really?
Yes, like the umpire will inspect their hands for any sort of sticky substance and look at their cap or something like that.
I know there was a time where cricket players would have like lip balm and they would try and use that to tamper the ball. And I remember one time a cricket player got in trouble for it because they actually used their lip balm because they're in the sun or whatever to protect their skin. They were using that to like grease up the ball, basically. It's just like...
There's a bunch of stuff with COVID too. When COVID hit, people stopped being allowed to use saliva on the ball, which was previously allowed, which is kind of gross.
That is very gross.
Yep. But that's the game.
Go cricket.
I saw somebody got in trouble for using saliva on the ball recently. And then there was a whole discussion about if the pandemic's over. I don't know if you've seen infection rates recently. Doesn't look like it is.
I have, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's a new strand and everything, right?
Yep.
But they shouldn't have done it in the first place. Putting saliva on a ball is just really gross.
Yeah, it is. Wow. N18 says when they pitched in high school, they would put a ton of gel in their hair and use that. Admitting to ball tampering.
How dare you? Well, there's also chewing gum. That was another common one that you saw in cricket. Which is also gross because you're using saliva.
The craziest thing in baseball to you lately is electronic pitch calling. Catcher has a remote that signals to an in-ear piece to the pitcher. Is that because they were worried about, like, sign stealing?
Oh yeah, sandpaper was another good one, as BBK mentions.
So the Australian
Sandpaper on a cricket ball.
the Australian team had this huge snafu where like 3 of them were collaborating to sneak sandpaper into matches and use it to tamper with the ball. And they got banned from play for some amount of time and everything. And then I think it was the Australian cricket team itself like hired documentary filmmakers to make a documentary about how like their return to glory and how they were no longer bad and stuff. And there's this really bizarre and lengthy documentary series about the Australian cricket team going to England to play in the Ashes after that cheating scandal. It's one of the weirdest pieces of content that I've ever seen. I didn't make it all the way through.
That.
I didn't make it all the way through. I can't recommend
I don't want
it.
to watch it.
It is. It's worth watching an episode and just being like, "Wow, this exists," and then probably stop watching after that.
Yeah.
It's on Amazon. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts, Emma?
Not really. It's been a delightful conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's fun to game with friends.
We are all gamers, after all.
What are you looking forward to in 2024? About that.
What is it with your chat and cat girls?
I think it's just Mayashi.
Okay.
No. Well, Mayashi loves cat girls, and then Mayashi has a supporting faction who really want to help Mayashi find out if other people like cat girls as well.
Okay. Context is important. Thank you. What am I looking forward to next year? Looking forward to seeing my partner because we all know LDRs are difficult. I'm looking forward to traveling a little bit. I spent a lot of time in the US last year for relationship reasons, but it's going to be nice to travel to... I'm going to be traveling around Europe for a couple of Magic events, and I'm going to spend some time outside of those events just like visiting places and being a tourist during the summer, so that's going to be quite nice. And just honestly, just kind of relax. Last year, I say last year, I mean this year. This year was kind of stressful, so it's just going to be really nice to just do my own thing and just kind of have some self-care.
Self-care is important.
Yes.
And accountability. This is... Sorry. Somebody... One of my guests, 2 days ago now, said it was really important to make sure that you were having fun while you were gaming. And if you weren't having fun, you had to take a time out and step away for a bit until you're ready to come back again. And you had to hold yourself accountable for that. And I know
so many Magic players that could use that advice.
It's great advice, right?
It's really good advice.
I've been chuckling to myself nonstop ever since then about how bad I am at that. I don't think I'm very good at doing that. I think if I get frustrated with a game, it just makes me want to play it more. It's like, that's when I get really into it.
But then again, I'm someone, if there's like a high emotional situation, or there's a situation that's like frustrating me or angering me, just taking a step back is my way of dealing with it, because, you know, you need to have boundaries. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's good to take a step back because things will just get worse otherwise.
Unless they turn around and you start enjoying yourself and actually they get better. You never know for sure. Maybe my contrasting advice will be, if you're having a bad time gaming, just try harder. I'm not being serious. Thank you. Skill issue. Thank you, Emma, for joining me. This has been lovely. It is always great to chat with you. I hope that you and Ross have exciting times in this coming year. And that your time back in England is well as well. Get some good walks in spring.
Hell yeah. And we need to talk about cricket, so.
Yes, always.
All right, then. Talk soon.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
What's the oatmeal comic about happiness, Nestarl? Yes, Emma does love cat girls. Why did you wait until you were off air to say that? Yeah, you can link it. Thanks for gifting us up to Emma Esrab. How to be perfectly unhappy. I'm not a happy person. When I tell people this, they infer that I am unhappy. They assume my status is binary. Either I'm a joyous triumph or a miserable wretch. Recognize no spectrum, only two states of being, happy and unhappy. But I've never felt happy. I felt joy, I felt bliss, but those feelings are ephemeral. Being happy implies permanence. It implies you completed all the prerequisites and now you sit atop your giant pile of happy forever. It implies you won, you beat the end boss, you made it. You're a triumph, you're incredible, you're whole. When I disparage this idea of happiness, the counter-argument is always the same. Oh, I know, it's all about the journey. But that's not it either. The conversation about the journey is always coupled with the idea that the journey is a joyous one, rich with smiles and fun and laughter. Also, journeys require endpoints. Otherwise, you're not Frodo, you're just a homeless guy wandering around with stolen jewelry. I mean, I think that's fine. But yeah, sure. The problem with happy is a lot like the problem with Pluto several years ago. Is it? I like this comic. It's very long. It's very long. I'm not going to read it all on stream. It seems lovely, though. It seems lovely. So I have Surge coming on in half an hour. And I will decompress a bit and get ready for more social time. Can I run you through the lines of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, please? Sure. Do you want to hear about my Season 3 of The Simpsons deck? I didn't get up and walk around yet. Let me die to Guardian. And then I'm all about getting up and walking around. But first I want to die to Guardian. This is a very bad silent run so far. It was not a good start. And it's improved a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, I sort of see where the message is going, Nestal. I have read such messages before. It's a big thing with social media, too. The whole, like, toxic happiness thing. Oh, I have bouncing class now, I just win the run. It's lucky. Only positive vibes. I guess I meant to play this just in case. Maybe I save the 2 health and then use Gambler's Brew if I miss. I don't know. I did lose myself 2 health by doing that. You wonder if the happiness book writers were happy while writing their motivation book. Maybe. I know people who have done a lot of work on themselves and reached a point where they feel that they are happy and who want to tell other people about how they reached that point. I don't think that's an unreasonable experience for a person to have. I also know of instances where someone has been miserable and has... I think one part of it is you can kind of fake it till you make it sometimes in life. Sometimes people do that with happiness, where it's like, we are not happy, but we will write a book about how to become happy, and in doing so, maybe we will work it out. I don't know if everyone has. Everyone who has tried to do that, but some people maybe have. I do a great interview/conversation. I think so this time. I feel like I do okay at it. I don't know if I'd say great. I think for me, a very important part of like really doing a good conversation is paying attention to what the other person's saying, and so the fact that I'm playing Slay the Spire at the same time means I would never say that I'm doing great here. Like I'm mostly paying attention to what people are saying, to be clear, but I have distracting factors going on as well. I guess we take Runic Dome. I feel like I took Runic Dome last Silent Run too. Was that a Silent Run? I don't remember. True Nastarl. Oh no, I don't know what they're doing. Oh no, the consequences of my actions. That's unlucky. Takeaways that have stood out to me from playing Low Ascension again. I've been surprised at how lethal some of the fights can be, even at Low Ascension. I was not expecting, like in particular, like there are some Low Ascension, like Act 1 boss fights that are actually pretty hard. What else? I'm sure I have said things out loud that I can't necessarily think of right now. Oh, a lot of people thought that I would play greedier because I was playing at Low Ascension, which has not been my experience at all. I've been playing... Like, I took 4 damage commons in this Silent Act 1. And the reason for that is that it has felt like I don't need to have as strong a deck at the end of the run, and so it is fine to be focusing on surviving until I can get to the end of the run. I need to remove more strikes. I have way too many strikes in my deck. You went to the doctor recently and mentioned you were sad. The doctor said not to worry as the great streamer Jorbs was in town. You should go see him and you would cheer up. But you were Jorbs the entire time. Wait, you're Jorbs? Pretty sure I'm Jorbs. I'm playing the Chemical X declined opening a lot lately. I finished not dying to Guardian and still didn't get up. What do you want me to do? Stand up and like walk around in a circle? I'm feeling fine. You want me to stand up and walk around in a circle? What if I don't wanna? What is difficulty, really? A great question. Imagine if I ever drew Calculated Gamble. Or Crippling Cloud. Crippling Cloud's the card I actually cared about there. I don't know why I said Calculated Gamble. Probably because I was reading it. Alright, fine. Shall we do jumping jacks and push-ups, chat? I'll race you to 50 jumping jacks and 20 push-ups. None of you can beat me. Burpees? Alright, 10 burpees first, and then those other ones. What are burpees? Does anybody remember? In the upper floor, you'll do squats. Alright, cool. Burpee. Oh, I don't. Right here. This. Like that. I don't know if that's actually a burp. What's that, like 15? Yeah, I'm not doing the other shit. Those are hard. Alright. Now I have to try not to die as I recover. They say the important part of fitness is recovery. I think that's from, like, a Tom Clancy novel or something. Oh, I forgot this attacks you. But this turn it doesn't attack you. Ten burpees, 50 jumping jacks, 20 push-ups. Holy shit. You actually went through with it? I'm sorry. I feel responsible for the pain you're currently feeling. This can actually deal me quite a lot of damage. And if I do liquid memories here, I stack the ritual dagger. I don't stack the ritual dagger, that was a lie. I understand why I thought that would work. I also understand why it didn't work in retrospect. Alright, what was the other stuff? 50 jumping jacks and 20 push-ups.